I think like 2014 was the golden era of gaming, right? Like we got the Mass Effects and we got the Dragon Ages and everyone was happy. But then you have like the social justice activists that started whining about it. And like, oh my god, this game is sexist. Oh my god, this game is such and such. And they went after the developers and they said, no, you need to hire gay people in your company because otherwise you're homophobic. You need to hire minorities in your company because otherwise you're racist. And, you know, like all of this pressure built up, you couldn't argue against them because if you argued against them, they were like, well, we have no institutional power. Why do you care anyway? And so, you know, it was a slow churning, slow grinding thing that was also exacerbated by stuff like ESG funding and activist-based corporations. And basically, like, the change happened eventually. And it wasn't like a change that stopped. Like, they didn't say, well, I mean, we reached to a point. Like, Dragon Age 3, for instance, right? They wouldn't say, okay, Dragon Age 3 is where we're at. Like, there's still, like, a sexy female character here, but, like, we also have our Tablerina in it. We got our LGBT representation, but it's not really in your face. Like we're happy with where things are at. No, of course not. They had to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. To the point where you get to the Concord level. To the point where they actually ended up firing talent at the company. Like, I know from companies... They have indoctrination camps. I don't know what else to call them, but like imagine this, right? Imagine you're a guy that's a coder and you're being sent to this corporate retreat where they lecture you about why white men are bad. They lecture you about the language you use in coding, that you can't use the word master, you can't use the word blacklist, like all this type of nonsense. Is it a pleasure to work at that company? You know, they're policing people on shit they say on Xitter. They look through your... chat logs and emails that they have a file, just have it ready to go. No one likes that shit, right? And so a lot of the talent left. Other talent generally bought into the bullshit. Like a lot of people, they unironically think they're changing the world. They're changing the way people view things. But most importantly, I would say what pissed people off the most is the arrogance. The sheer fucking hubris, as Picard likes to put it. The whole thing kicked off when you had the guy, Cabrutus, shine a spotlight on a consultant-based company. And they were like, okay, this game has Sweet Baby in it. That's it. You know, like, if the company genuinely thought that they're making a good product, then they would be like, okay, you know, that maybe more people will buy our shit now that a spotlight is put in it. But, like, no, what happened is, like, one of the people from that company said that we need to cancel Cabrutus. We need, not only do we need to get him banned from Xitter, we also gotta take away his Steam library. We need to teach him a lesson. And a lot of gamers were like, oh, who the fuck you are? You know? And of course they reacted in the typical way to summon the journalists, summon the elector counts, and declare war on their customers. And the snowball just kept rolling. They literally couldn't read the room. Like in the Bud Light era, where people are struggling to tell you that we have had enough of the shit. They're like, no, you know what, we're going to double down. And so, massive catastrophe within the AAA gaming in the West. In Asia, it's flourishing. Like, I'm sorry to say this, but like China released Wukong. Like, I'm looking objectively, it's just an observation. It's not by... They have Wukong. They got Path of Exile 2. The Koreans, they got their Nikkeis, their Stellar Blades. Like, they're flourishing. Meanwhile, in the West, we get our Concords. And so now journalists have to write these things to explain that, no, listen, it's not about wokeness. No, it's literally everything but. And these articles are not written for the customers. Like, they're not written for the gamers. Like, as you can see, this article, it's got like 27,000 followers? Sorry, no, the entire PC Gamer. Holy shit, the entire magazine. Am I reading this correctly? Is this the entire fucking magazine? They got 2 views? Oh my goodness. Compare this to a juggernaut that's a YouTuber. Like, compare this to Asmongold. It's got like 2 million? I mean, I got more followers than them. What the fuck? Anyway, right, so they're writing this in the hopes that they can persuade investors. It's like, no, keep the course, keep the gravy train going, because a lot of them have relationships. They got connections in AAA companies and in the consultant firms. Like, it's an incestuous thing. They don't want to see Ubisoft selling to China. They would be horrified. Like, they would actually have to do journalism for once. And so, like, they don't want to see the culture shifting. They don't want to see the change. And they're writing articles saying it's like, oh, it's because gamers want ownership. Really? Do they want ownership when they play Path of Exile 2, you disingenuous, manipulative twats? Do they want ownership when they're playing Nikkei? Like, look, I would love to say that, yeah, like, gamers all of a sudden have grown a consumer conscience and they don't want to put up with the nonsense. No, I live in the real world. I understand gamers. If they would have actually made a World of Warcraft game, and what I mean by this, for those of you who don't know, World of Warcraft was a cultural phenomenon at the time. Like, everyone knew about it. People in China were playing it. It was fucking massive. Like, it's difficult to express just how massive World of Warcraft is. If they made a game like that now, in the West, people wouldn't give a shit. Even if it has, like, censorship and it tracks you off the platform, on the platform, it pushes, like, everyone to have pronouns and whatever. If it's actually, like, an amazing game, if it's genuinely, like, something that would be great, people would buy it, and then they would put up with it. How do I know? I already see it happening. Like again, games made in China, they're owned by the CCP, and they probably harvest there. No one gives a shit if the game is good. This is not like me trying to educate gamers. I'm just observing the reality. I'm just noticing the trend. Not a single person goes like, yeah, I'm not going to make a Path of Exile 2 account. No. Like, despite the fact that the game is free, people spend money on early access. And then people spend money on gear. It's a fucking money printer. It doesn't even have naked women in it. And yet people are willing to buy it. Why? Because it's a good game. So when I see articles, it's like, oh yes, gamers are pushing back on the erosions of game ownership. Fuck off. They're pushing back on wokeness, which happens to go hand in hand with the erosion of game ownership. Because as people lose money, right? Like, if you're a AAA company and you're losing money because you're not selling any merchandise, like, who the fuck wants to buy Abby dolls? No one wants to buy an Abby doll. No one is retarded enough to buy an Abby doll. They have to find other ways of monetization, such as harvesting data, doing day one DLC, making the game cost $120 if you want to play it 3 days early, right? Like if the content was good, if the game was good, they wouldn't even have to go through these tactics. Because they're damaging your brand. Like, imagine if you're a AAA company and you're literally the only brand that doesn't do this shit. Like, people would respect you just because of that. They would be like, oh, this is a such and such product. I mean, yeah, it's quality. But they don't do that. Because they need the money. They alienated the bigots, and it turns out that the bigots are almost everyone. And you can't run a business without the fucking bigots. What do? Oh, you try to educate the bigots. They don't listen to you. They're fucking bigoted. And so Asia doesn't care. Games before 2014 didn't care, which is why everyone right now is playing old games. I'm looking at the people in my Steam list. They're playing esoteric Forex shit. They're playing, like, random games, you know. There are some Western games as well. Like, I see people playing Age of Empires. I see some people playing Ironheart. Like there are people playing, like, games that are old, but nothing new. I think the next year is going to be a catastrophe. A catastrophe for the Western gaming press. And a catastrophe for the Western gaming industry as a whole, actually. Someone told me that it's not so bad for Ubisoft because they can get money from the government and grants and shit. And so, look, I mean, like, some major companies may actually take grants. But the grants aren't that big. You know, if you have a game that's like $400 million to make, yeah, I mean, maybe a couple of $1 million you can get from a government and you can get some tax cuts, but you still need to sell the shit. You may have, like, some jokes coming around, like, well, what was it? The Dustborn one. You know, like that's a small AA company. They made the game. You know, they don't care if they don't sell it. They pocket the money because they got like some EU grants or whatever. Like that's fine. You can see more of those. But you're not going to see like Ubisoft titles. You're not going to see another Assassin's Creed built only around government grants. No, they're going to have to start shutting down offices if they don't start selling the product. There's very few businesses that can exist without selling anything. And usually that's the government. But other than that... No, actually, no. Even the government has to sell war. Yeah, like even the government is in the business of selling war. That's why we have governments. And so even they have to perform. Let me know what you guys think, though. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.